Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. My name is Rosalie Olmstead. I am WiCyS Executive Assistant. It is my honor to have you all here today with WiCyS Strategic Partner, Salesforce. But before we get started, I'd like to give you a quick overview of the WiCyS organization. We often go by our acronym WiCyS because that is exactly what we are, a global cyber sisterhood. WiCyS is a 501c3 nonprofit organization with a mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. Our community is made up of over 10,000 members in over 99 different countries. We have 70 professional affiliates and over 300 student chapters around the world. We offer a variety of initiatives and skills development programs, including the Leadership Series, Job Board Plus Plus, the Speakers Bureau, our annual conference, which is coming up in April on April 2nd through the 5th in Dallas, Texas, our Mentor Mentee program, our book club, and so much more. We owe all of our wonderful initiatives and programs to our strategic partners who fund us year round. Our tier one partners being Akamai, Amazon, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon University Software Engineering Institute, Cisco, Ford Motor Company, Google, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, Optum, Sandia National Labs, and SentinelOne. Please do not forget to ask questions throughout the webinar today. If you have a question throughout any point, drop it in the question box below, and we will get to them at the end during the Q&A session. If we are unable to get to all the questions by the end of the webinar, please feel free to connect with our wonderful panelists through LinkedIn. Just make sure you mention the webinar specifically. And lastly, if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the WiCyS newsletter to stay up to date on all of our upcoming events and programs. You can find it at wicys.org in the right-hand corner of your screen. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Morris with Salesforce.
Thank you, Rosalie. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nicole Morris. I am an information security architect here at Salesforce, and I've also been a WiCyS member for the last 4 years. So I really wanted to thank everyone for attending our panel on Salesforce's secret sauce to embodying trust as our number one value. And to get started, I'm going to allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Jalissa, if you wanted to start us off.
Yes, hi everybody. Nice to, well, I can't see you, but I hope you can see me. My name is Julissa Marcenaro. I'm a Senior Director of Product Management here at Salesforce for Detection and Response. I've been at Salesforce it will be 3 years in February, but I've been doing product management for the past 20 plus years, which gives away my age, but don't tell anyone. And now I love to be here with you today and talk about trust, which is our number one value. Should I pass it on to someone else, Nicole? Okay, Liz.
Okay, hi, my name is Liz Murakami. I am an information security principal, also a director. I work for the Cybersecurity Operations Center here at Salesforce, and I am excited to be here today and talk to you all about trust. Go ahead, Sid.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Sid Chowdhury. I have a threat intelligence background. I currently functionally lead our intelligence-driven research into environmental assessment and protection at Salesforce, and that's about it. Robert.
Yeah, saving the best for last. So I've been here at Salesforce for 5 years. I lead our customer incident response function where we help customers when they have a security incident on the Salesforce platform. So feel free to reach out to either I or Nicole if your company ever experiences something like that. Prior to that, I worked incident response for Salesforce.
Great. So I'm going to get started with an easy one. So here at Salesforce, in you guys' opinion, how do we define trust?
Liz, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I can go first. So I define trust as giving people the confidence in Salesforce's reliability, integrity, and our ability to act with honesty and consistency. I believe that trust is also developed through building strong relationships in both security and relationships. Trust, centers on communication and transparency. Whether it's between people or about our products, Trust requires an ongoing validation and can easily be damaged if not maintained carefully. Trust also deepens through being able to be vulnerable and have empathy for our customers and the things that they experience. Being open with one another and responding with care, one of the things that we make sure we do when we do have to do those specific types of communications with our customers. Trust is also often fragile, but I mean, it can grow with constant positive actions and interactions over time, especially during difficult times and through high stress, just like during a security response.
Awesome, I agree. From my end, I feel like trust is built in a foundation of faith. I know that faith is defined as belief without reason. In this case, I do believe that when you have faith in someone, it's because you believe that they are reliable, they're honest, they're going to fulfill their promises, they have integrity, and you believe in their abilities to complete what they need to do. So I truly believe that when you have faith in someone, you are able to take a leap of trust. But then that's just the beginning. You know, after you take the leap of trust, then it's on the other party to make sure that they maintain that trust by being consistent and persistent with their actions, right? And that they make sense. And this applies not just to people, but also to entities, in this case, Salesforce. That's why trust is our number one value. We don't just say this, we believe this is the first thing when we are talking about our objectives every year, and maintaining trust among ourselves and with our customers is the most important thing for us. So we really try to live through this value every single day and maintain it. That doesn't mean, like you said, Liz, that it's not fragile, right? There's things that happen. I don't want to call them act of God. And by the way, don't think I'm too religious because I'm using act of God and faith. Like, this is like the term. So there are things that happen that sometimes are completely outside of our control. But I think because we live through trust, then we immediately jump into I don't want to say repair, but it's almost like we recover, right? The important thing is that whatever happens, we have to show up and make sure, acknowledge it, and make sure that we're going to do better and learn from that experience and actually show it with our actions. So that's how I define trust, Maya.
Nice. And those are really great points that you both highlighted. Like, trust is very important here at Salesforce, especially when working and building relationships with not only customers, but our internal stakeholders. So I was trying to see, do you guys have any examples of measures that you've seen taken within the security org where trust has been used to build and ensure transparency and accountability with either internal or external stakeholders?
Yeah, I could go here first to cover this, but from my perspective, overall we know that Salesforce has a ton of customer data and so that makes the security and trust on our platform pretty high. And we protect each other, the customers and Salesforce, with a well-documented shared responsibility model that you can find online. Essentially, that means it's both of our jobs to protect each other and the data on the platform. From my perspective and how we do intelligence, the intelligence teams at Salesforce track threat actors that might be targeting us or our customers, the current landscape, any big trends that are targeted towards our company, things like that, right? And we use that to partner with internal teams to defend against those threats and build preventions early on. Let's say we can't detect them or the risk is somewhat hard to mitigate, then we can also share it with relevant organizations directly. We will work with our partners and customers. We also work with intelligence groups across government and tech and law enforcement when relevant, and there's that threshold. Similarly, we are also constantly doing awareness campaigns internally to make sure that the other parts of the organization that are in engineering and sales and all other employees are also aware of the big themes. So as they do their day-to-day work and build new things for Salesforce, they integrate those best practices through the whole process.
Yeah, and adding to that, so coming from the incident response, I'm coming up working incident response. I've seen many different incidents. We've had to make that decision of, do we notify customers? Do we notify our internal customers, our external stakeholders? And we always come down to two different types of notifications. It's either we notify out of trust and transparency, or we notify out of contractual obligation. most of the ones where we know, so I'd say, 1 in 10 incidents is a contractual obligation when we notify. 9 out of 10, there's no legal obligation in many companies, many places I've worked with, companies I've worked with prior to Salesforce. They choose not to notify because they worry it will erode the customer's trust in you. But I agree with Salesforce's take I think it gains us trust by letting our customers know, when we've had a problem on the platform, when data, when we've had either accidents or, like Julissa said, acts of God or just uncontrolled things that have occurred that have, maybe broken what we should have shared. Then we let the customer know as quickly as possible. So 1, they can be aware of it. And then 2, next time if we say, hey, this didn't happen, they're going to believe us a lot more. So I think that's, the biggest thing to gain customer trust. And seeing that, so now as my working with customers, I've seen that play benefits of, when I talk to customers, I can go in and say, hey, we'll notify you. We notify you as quick as we can, as often as we can. And if we don't find anything, we'll also let you know that too. So just building that relationship of trust over time with our customers proves great dividends when we either have a mistake or when we, they think we've had a mistake. We can go in and honestly say, no, we've done our due diligence. We've done everything we can. We can't find anywhere you're impacted.
Nice. I really love that example. Like, it really highlights how us utilizing trust to build these relationships positively impacts not only the customer experience, but the future relationships as they continue to use our platform. So as we understand, Salesforce has multiple core values, quality, customer success. So why, in you guys' opinion, is trust most important to have within a stakeholder customer relationship, keeping in mind the multiple values we do have?
I can go ahead and take this one, Nicole. So trust is the most important value for stakeholders and customers because it forms a strong foundation for lasting relationships, ensuring confidence in Salesforce's ability to deliver on promises and consistently meeting our customers' expectations. This turns into confidence that helps reduce both ours and our customers' risks and enhances how we work together. The strong foundation that we build allows for our customers to depend on the reliability and trust, so they feel comfortable no matter what the situation, similar to what Robert and Julissa mentioned in their examples, that they can always make sure that they are comfortable and rely on what matters in those situations.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Liz said. We're not just boys, girls, by the way, in like the order. It just happens how we're answering the questions, okay? But just to add to what she said, I like to, I'm a little bit of a gamer, especially for a particular game, Diablo, which I don't know if you guys know it, but no matter what, I love Diablo. But the point is, when you unlock a new level, just like in mastering in a video game, but when you unlock trust, a true partnership can begin here. And you, no matter where you are, whether this is like with someone from your family or a friend or a colleague, a peer at work or a customer, I think that amazing things can happen when trust is unlocked. And that's the reason why this is our number one value. When you know that this other person is going to be your ride or die, it's going to be there with you no matter what happens, in the trenches, rolling up their sleeves, and fixing whatever needs to be fixed, or figuring out whatever is the problem that we have at hand, you feel much more at ease because someone else has your back. In this case, we want to have the back of our customers, and we have each other's back. And I'm just going to share a fun fact about how I met Robert. So Robert and I had met, we were working on a project, but we were really friends. And then something happened on a customer and on a weekend. And then he was trying to move heaven and earth, but he needed additional people to engage with. And then I happened to see on that weekend the messages popping on my phone. And I was like, okay, what's up? What's going on? Let's see who we need to pull in. We ended up calling the whole company until we found the right person to help us fix this problem. But, from then on, I don't know about Robert. I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like you and I connected, and then we became friends. And then even if we don't talk for months, you know that if you need something from me, you're going to get it. I'm going to give it to you, although that sounds a little bit naughty, but you know what I mean? I'm going to help you no matter what, because we share that experience. And I feel like a lot of the relationships that we build internally at Salesforce are built on that. We are always like trying to defend and protect and do whatever it takes to make sure that we avoid issues. But if something happens, then we're all hands on deck to make it, to address it. So I think that has actually, even though this is a huge company with thousands of employees all over the world, we're tight. Security is like a family, and we make things happen because we trust each other.
Yeah, and exactly.
Sorry, Rob, I was going to add to that. Sorry. To add to that, kind of to where Julissa is going, is that we have this concept here at Salesforce, Ohana, right? Where we treat and we make sure that, trust kind of translates into that we are a family. How do we respect and how do we make sure that we are there and reliable for one another, and making sure that we actually do try to do and put our best foot forward to make sure that we are taking care of the things that we need to. That translates to our number one value, trust, and that translates to our customers. So kind of to mirror that, what Julissa said is we really take that concept of Ohana to heart and really try to put that in the things that we do.
Yeah, and exactly to their point, I think it's difficult to have the Ohana feeling. It's difficult to even have any other values if you don't have trust as your first value. Because, and I think everybody's worked at those companies where day one you read, this is your core values, and then literally you never read them again the whole entire time you work there. They're not discussed. I can't count the number of times where I've heard trust is our number one value in a meeting, and it has not only just been spouted as some corporate value, but it's actually changed the decision-making process. It's changed the outcome of the decision, and it really isn't, is this going to cost more money? It's what's best for the customer. How can we ensure that customer trust is number one? How can we do that? What can we do to drive that trust? It also is trust is the number one value in employees. Salesforce, like I said, is a huge family. Like any family, we don't always get along, but it definitely drives that as, we're all trying to work together towards one goal, which is providing the best experience for our customers.
Yeah, heavily agreed. To piggyback off what everyone else said, I think trust is like the foundational layer for all of the other values, right? Like, they all of you covered like the customer success aspect of it, and how the more you trust, the quicker that works. We talked about building internal relationships. Similar thing for like equality and equity, right? The more honest conversations you can have, the more you trust, the easier that becomes to accomplish. Same thing for innovation. Like as we build new things internally with each other, with our customers, trust makes that process a lot smoother. And so that I think that I see that as quite fundamental.
Yeah, no, those are all definitely really great points. And I agree with everyone. Having trust is important within not only the stakeholder and the customer relationship, because you have to have a good internal resource relationship to be able to give the best relationship to the customers, because we all have to work together for the one common goal. So with everything we've discussed and keeping that in mind, does this change anyone's perspective on how your teams should deal with trust?
I can go first here at a high level. Essentially, I think of trust also from a how do we protect and manage our threats, right? Given the background, so threat actors are constantly, changing their tactics to evade defenses even more, and with the pace of technology, especially with all the things that are happening in the last few years with AI, that's happening even quicker, right? Like it's the tactics are becoming smoother. There's efficiency. There's increase in sophistication, and so to be able to defend against something like that when things like laws are still catching up, um, to do that and to be able to detect especially sophisticated activity early enough, you almost have to be on the forefront of security and like cutting edge research. Now, based on organization, sometimes that works, right? Like sometimes you might be able to invest heavily in one topic and be on the forefront, but that may not be true for others. So because that's the case, and because there's limitations to just pure time and resources, the best solution to this is that trusted partnership, where if our peers and the external sharing we do, if they see things that we don't, or we see things that they don't, by sharing that kind of threat information, by sharing, visibility around threats, we find them and catch them sooner than would be possible if we were doing this individually. And so as these things get even more evolved, those increased partnerships, both with everybody here on this call, with each other in the company, and with our customers and other security groups, that was going to be critical in the next how many ever future years to be able to actually defend against these threats.
So I come at everything from an incident response, especially working with customers perspective. And the first thing we always have to deal with when a customer has a security incident is making them trust us. If they don't believe what we're saying, if they don't believe the answers we're giving them, so that's always the barrier we have to get through, because many times customers have gone to vendors, including myself. I've gone to vendors, and they give you I would say a legalese answer, or like a minimum answer, just to make you feel like you're getting an answer, but it doesn't actually help you solve problems. So that's what we always try and overcome, is giving customers the most answers we can. But it's always a balancing act, because we do have to protect other customers, or we have to protect Salesforce proprietary information. So it's trying to give customers the most information we can. And I think all customers understand this, while still maintaining, what we need to keep secret for Salesforce, both to protect those customers and help, build our brand.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that, Robert. Like, for our team and what we do in customer incident response, how we deal with trust has to have a balance of how we can best benefit the customer, but still protect the confidentiality of other customers. And so just keeping that in mind and understanding that there's multiple layers to the relationships we build with customers, especially the relations we build with customers within different AOVs. So keeping that in mind and understanding the best way to cater and build those relationships is always going to be best. And then, of course, we have the internal relationships too, and how we deal with trust and building the trust within those relationships is just being almost like being upfront and honest, like being honest, being forthcoming, and just being helpful, right? Like if they help us when we need them, when they come to us, we want to make sure we give them that same respect and that same opportunity to give them that same help. And just building a relationship like that, as in we can be reliable and then we can rely on them. So I want to see, did anyone else have any thoughts around our number one value of trust, or how we apply trust here at Salesforce?
I think to add on to what you just said, I think honesty is, at least working with customers is the key. I think everybody can understand, or at least appreciate, when you give them an honest answer. And it's also very easy to see, customers always tend to know, or everybody tends to know, when you're either, when you're trying to hem around something, or when you're trying to skirt an issue. I've always found it better to just say the uncomfortable thing. If we've done something, or if something hasn't worked quite right, or if something breaks, or if I've made a promise to deliver something and I'm unable to, I always find it better to say, instead of blaming some third party, to say, hey, we aren't able to deliver it. We're working as best we can. Here's what happened, and give them as much detail as they can. People generally appreciate the honesty. And again, honesty builds trust, and it becomes a cyclical event where that honesty builds trust, and it builds that better relationship. So the customer or internal team wants to come back to you to get that information.
To Robert's point, I think the outcome of trust on your side and honesty is also the reciprocation of it, right? Where as soon as when we're honest and we share, we immediately see stronger relationships. Now they're sharing back too, and no matter what audience it's in, that's almost always valuable if you can get that immediate connection and sharing happening.
Hey, so we have a few questions that are coming in from Catherine Marie Robinson. Hi. Yeah, she has a lot of questions, so maybe we can switch into we can pivot into answering those. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we can do Q&A.
Okay. FIFO, LIFO.
make sure everyone, please feel free to drop some questions in the question box below and we will start to get to them. I'm going to go with, how do you develop trust with groups you work with, but that are not under your management within the organization?
Can I start with that?
Yes.
Like on mine. I came to Salesforce and was onboarded completely remotely, and I still work remote. I most of my team is everywhere in the world, so I'm just based out of Jersey. So it was interesting to start creating relationships and develop trust with people that never seen me in person, or I haven't seen them in person.
Yeah.
So I think that trust in this case, whether they were within my org or outside my org, but they were people that I had to work with, is developed when you start with authenticity. You need to be yourself, right? And these people need to feel it. You need to not just show authenticity, but also empathy and actually interest on the other person on the other side of the camera, right? Like it's not just about get to business or they tell me what I need to know so I can do my job well. It was like, hey, where are you from? I have an accent. I think you have an accent. So do you want to tell me more? This is where I am. And then we started connecting on a personal level, and then actually not just to check a checkbox, right? Like actual interest in getting to know the other person. So I can tell you in my first few days here, even though there were a million people I needed to meet and VPs and directors and whatever, the first people I actually wanted to meet were my developers. And then people were like, wait, why do you have already so many meetings? Because I have 12 developers that I need to meet with, and I need to know them and I need to understand them, because even though I do need to work with all of those directors and VPs and whatnot, these are the guys that are going to make the magic happen with me. We're going to be in the trenches. So to me, they're most important people to know. The rest I can get to know later. So I feel like if you're authentic, empathetic, and not fake it, this has to be true, right? So then that's how you can start building trust with other groups, and like with people that have nothing to do with me reporting wise, but we work side by side, but in different orgs. They know my kid's name. They see their face in camera. Like I know their in some cases I even know their kid's birthday. So it's kind of like I feel like that's the way that I build trust, because you have an insight into something that you wouldn't thought that you were gonna get from me, and then we ended up connecting. And then we end up becoming friends. So that's how I go about. I actually try to have true friendships with the people that I have to work with the most on every group, and then that makes magic for me.
Yeah, adding to what Julissa said, I would say, so for me, some of my best work relationships have come from when I've either, so I'm a fairly passionate person, especially when it comes to like driving what my team needs. And I tend to lose my temper occasionally. I'm sure everyone that knows me will be super shocked, but it comes from owning my weaknesses and then going back and apologizing. So I would say it's happened several times here at Salesforce, but going back to that person and apologizing and fixing things and working on that personal relationship first, it builds a better business relationship. But finding those times when you do overstep, because I think in a large organization or especially when you're doing incident response or high stress things, people regularly push past the bounds of where they should. And going back and fixing those relationships instantly and owning your weaknesses and fixing those helps build that relationship, because that person knows you're actually a genuine person and you're not just a jerk trying to get your way.
Yeah, and to add to that, when you actually invest in those relationships, it does make it a little bit easier. Might not be in agreement all the time, but it does make it a bit easier for you to have those difficult conversations, similar to Robert's experience there, where, if you thought you're overstepping just a little bit or you're angry, and you can go back and have those discussions. That personal investment that you have in being very intentional about how you build that relationship is really important, because at the end of the day, not only are we able to get things done in a very, in a professional manner, but also when you build those really good foundations, They also help you elevate and build rapport with other people who you've not actually had the opportunity to work with, and using that, leveraging the relationships that you do have, and being able to say, hey, can you introduce me to somebody that I don't know outside of my org? I'm having a really hard time. Do you think you can do an introduction? We trust each other. How do we continue that and get them to see that they can also trust me as well? So having that is really important. And I do similar to what Julissa does as well, is try to build those friendships that you have, in your work environment, so that one, it's great, you love to do the work and you guys like to work together, but you're also able to translate that into actually getting things done.
Yeah, can I also say, really, really, really fast, there's one characteristic that we evaluate whenever we're doing promo cycles and when it's called being a courageous communicator. And I feel like this is something that comes both ends. When someone gets angry or whatever, and they have the the self-awareness to be able to say, hey, I know that I got heated, this is not me. And they basically apply the power of repair, and being very vulnerable and honest. That's something that goes such a long way, So the power of repair, I actually learned about that term through a TED Talk about parenting for my kid. And that's why they say that we are the first generation that actually apologizes to our children, because that never happened to me. I don't know about you, but no one apologized to me ever. But I do that with my child. And I think that that's an important way, because we mess up, but we acknowledge it, we learn from it, we recover, and then we show that we don't do that again. We might do something else, but not that. So I think it all ties together. But being a courageous communicator, not my first language, guys, so I'm sorry, but courageous communicator, it's a very important thing that we value here at Salesforce. It's something that we evaluate, like I said, in every promo cycle, and it's part of trusting each other, So without that, how could we trust each other if we're not having those hard conversations that go both ways? The person could not even know that they messed up and they did something that is damaging your relationship if you don't bring it up to them. So it's something that has to happen, and we do that. We practice that constantly.
Yeah, thank you guys for weighing in on that. I like hearing all the different opinions and ways to look at building trust within an organization and within different, individuals throughout the organization. So I appreciate all of your input. So we do have some questions, and we'll get into those. These may be hitting on the side of trust in a different capacity. So if we aren't sure if we're wanting to address them, that's okay. But let me know what your thoughts are. In your minds, as well as at Salesforce, is our trust and trustworthiness different?
I'll start with that one. Okay, go ahead. So I would say they're related, right? I think trustworthiness, is a key characteristic in building trust. It's an essential. I would say not only key, it's essential. So if you're trustworthy, it means we're believing what you're saying. We're believing the communications that are coming. If we're speaking in a corporate context, we're believing the communications that are coming out. So let's go back to Log4j, right? Every company was communicating things out, and it was, I remember being in meetings where we're evaluating our vendors, sending in communications on, do we actually believe what they're saying? And, several of the vendors we didn't trust. And so we made them go back and verify and push much harder. Other vendors that we build a good relationship of trust and trust. So that through trustworthiness, we built that good relationship of trust. We pushed back a lot less, and we just took their notification at their word. And I would say on the flip side, going back to Log4j, we had the same relationship with some of our customers. Some of our customers took us at our word when we said, and I don't want to say what we said because I don't even remember, it's been so long. But when we communicated those communications out to our customers, some customers believed it instantly, and that was the end of it. And some customers wanted much more verification and data. And, we had to build that trust layer or build that trustworthiness so they would begin to trust the information flow to their organizations.
Funny story. Oh, I'm sorry, Sid. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, Robert mentioned Log4j. That gives me flashbacks to scary times. No, my only point was, It's very similar. I think trust and trustworthiness are intrinsically related. If I had to really define it, like I think trustworthiness is like a facet of a person or an organization or an entity, and trust is about the relationship between more than one. If that makes sense. Like the way that's how I see it is like trust is between two or multiple things, and trustworthiness is a facet of that one thing, individuality. But obviously, the trust relationship defines how trustworthy someone is, right? Based on their history, based on how you perceive them, things like that.
I just wanted to say to that to Robert is that I was actually a Salesforce customer before, at the time that Log4j was happening, and I joined Salesforce right after Log4j had gotten somewhat under control. So I, as a customer, I remember going to my IT team and I was like, "You see what's happening?" And they're like, "Don't worry, Salesforce got this." This is literally quoting what I heard. And I was like, "Are you sure we don't have to do something?" And they're like, "Nope, Salesforce got this." And I was like, "All right." And then I joined Salesforce and the security team. And then it was just as they were coming out of like the whole, so I mean, I think Log4j Pro, I wasn't here to see it, but I heard the tales. And so I know what all that you all went through to put it under control. So as an ex-customer, thank you. And now that I'm in the trenches with you all, I hope that we never have to see that again. So, yeah.
You guys referenced, examples of how trust has shaped, interactions with customers. Because like you just said it, Julissa, sales, like even before you joined, it's like Salesforce has got it. How can you share, do you have any other examples of how trust has shaped your interactions with customers?
Robert,
I think you're muted.
Yeah, I just saw that. So from Nicole and I's perspective, I think it shapes our everyday interactions with customers because we are a customer-facing team. We work with customers all day long. It really helps us along coming from that level of trust and expertise, coming in as that partner to help customers. And again, customers are generally coming to our team on their worst day because they have had some sort of cyber incident, whether it's a breach or just some suspicious incident. And so when we do have that layer of trust built already, and it's not always there, right? Because it's trust, from our company is not only partnership between security, but it's also the account teams, the support, it's a total package of Salesforce. And, Salesforce, like any company, isn't always perfect. But when we do have it, it speeds our process along and helps us get the customer to resolution faster. When we have to build that layer of trust first, it slows down time to resolution for the customer. So, working with your vendors to gain that trust before a cybersecurity incident to me is key, because then you can trust the information flow back and forth between you, and you'll know which partners or which people in the company you need to partner with when you have those types of issues.
Exactly. And also to piggyback off of that, I feel like with the role Robert and I do, reputation also adds to the trust that we build with customers. Like for customers, I guess, for example, customers who don't regularly interact with the security team, our reputation is what allows them to trust what the information we're giving them, the best practices. But the customers that we do see frequently, we build trustworthiness over time because they've interacted with us. They've gotten the best response. They've gotten the interactions that they were looking for. They've got the honesty. And so we were able to build that trustworthiness to add to the level of trust they already had with us. But, it's just depending on the customer and the relationship we have, they're built differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add some additional detail there, because my role specifically isn't very customer facing, but I know in the world, again, it's the reputation, it's what the Salesforce name itself is, that when I do meet people and they find out, oh, you work for Salesforce, oh, you work in security, we love Salesforce, we use Salesforce, things like that. And I have those conversations with people, and it really does carry over into that because of the type of work and the trust that we do for Salesforce.
Wonderful. I'm going to go into the next question. So how does Salesforce handle situation where there is a breach of trust, either within the organization or with their customers?
I can start that one again. So I think we handle it with brutal honesty, with the self-reflection. So we do root cause, or not, it's not root, after action, I don't remember what we call them here at Salesforce, but we do after actions after incidents. So we go through and brutally review our performance on incidents, on all major incidents. And, internally in our team, we do it on almost every incident. And personally, I do it on every call, every interaction. It's like, how can I do it better? I think that's how you build trust, is by constantly striving to improve. Also, if something has been miscommunicated, if we've made a mistake, I think the key is going back and building that trust up and that honesty of going to the customer and letting them know when we've made a mistake. There's nothing worse than knowing someone made a mistake and they're not willing to admit it. It completely erodes trust and damages the relationship. So as quickly as we can, go back and fix it and clean it up, and letting the customer know where we've made mistakes, and then going back and cleaning that up, both internal customers and external customers.
To piggyback off of what Robert said, we're also looking at to take a more security lens to this from an internal perspective. We also, like, as part of that after action, look at, overall, like, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? There's a few ways to do that, right? We can look at, like, okay, what are the controls in place we can put to make this harder to happen in the future? Or, like, things like logging and detection to make sure that we have more opportunities to find it. If we didn't find it the first time, why didn't we? And how can we increase our visibility or provide the right communication and controls to customers to be able to have that level of visibility and protection? Is something we also do.
And because my team does handle a lot of some of those after action, we try to do a really deep retrospective on the way that we handle things. What are some of the things that we did well? What are some of the things that we could do better? And how do we change those differently next time? To really look at how we build back from where we were. I think it comes down to accountability, making sure, like Robert said, and like what Sid said, was making sure we take accountability and really having those hard truths and those hard conversations to say, yes, here's where we know that there was either something that happened on either side, but let's address it. Let's make sure that we come out of this with a solution versus what we do, not trying to play the blame game or doing any of those things, but making sure that you are building again from that relationship and that trust that you have to make sure that you can actually move forward.
I was about to talk with my mic muted, so thank you all for that weighing in. Do any of you have any insight into how we should go about developing trust with AI systems?
I can start here. So at a very, very high, like, threat view of this, there is things that with AI systems we know a lot about, right? Like it's about the infrastructure, like stuff where we know how it's how and where it's hosted, things like that. There's a lot of things with AI systems that are so new to us, right? Like all the new capabilities around learning and how they use training and validation data sets and how they interact with each other and create relationships and comprehend objects and data. And so the interesting thing is, it's easy to start with the low hanging fruit, which is in this context is like the known knowns, right? What do we know and what is obvious, and then cover the threats there. And similarly, like, build those controls, notify our customers on, like, hey, here's these new products, but here are these settings you can enable, here's how you protect yourself. And then as we get more to the unknown unknowns, that is, like, as the landscape's changing, the goal there, I think, is to understand and make those unknown unknowns known unknowns. So we're saying, okay, well, at least now we know what we don't know. And that happens by the thing we talked about, sharing with partners, sharing with customers, sharing internally. And when we have that visibility and we're doing more research and getting more data points, then it becomes to the point where we can do that same logging, detection, communication, controls, that stuff.
Can I just add to what Sid said and say, I think that to develop trust with AI systems, we need to invest a lot in education. So it's education of people like us, employees in a big company, but also education in the market. It's embracing the technology as opposed to rejecting it. Understand that this is new still, but it's evolving at a speed of light. Never seen something go that fast. So it's going to get better and better and better. So if you get educated, understand where are the moments where there's hallucinations or whatever it is, that you can identify them. This is not completely foolproof, but it's pretty damn good. And it, like I said, it's only going to get better. But if we don't get educated understand it, to see how we can work with it as opposed to reject it and be like, oh my God, it's going to take over my job. No, just learn how we can use it to make your job better. Maybe your job now can evolve into something better because you can leverage this new technology. But if you don't know what is it about and how to use it, how could you trust it, right? So you just have to play with it. Like jump in the pool, in the deepest side of the pool, and then see how you can make it work for you. Because AI is here to help us, not to take over. It's to help us. So as long as you keep that perspective and you're willing to learn, then I think it's easier to be able to like preach and evangelize, again, with a religion thing. I'm sorry, but like I feel like these are the perfect words for this, but we need to evangelize the use of AI across every single level. Like I've already asked, like in the school where my kid goes, when are we exposing them to AI? Not because I want them to necessarily for her to use it to do her homework for her, but like they need to learn how to use it so that she grows up with like this as a tool, in her toolkit, as a tool that she can leverage and know where the boundaries are, So the sooner we teach our kids that, the faster we're gonna polish the use of the technology. So that's just my perspective as a professional and as a mom.
I kind of have a slightly different take on it. Is I don't think you're ever going to be able to fully trust AI. Just like you can't ever fully trust cloud systems, just like you can't ever fully trust on-premises systems. But with each iteration, when I remember when everything started moving to the cloud, the big buzzword was secure by design. And we know, everybody does their best to secure it, but there's going to be flaws, there's going to be issues. Same thing with the move to AI. Understanding that these are risks, but the risk of not accepting it is greater than the risk of not moving to it means your business is going to stagnate, you're going to fall behind. So, you've just got to weigh your risks and decide which is the bigger risk for your business vector, your company, and just understand that as these bumps hit, prepare your leadership beforehand that, hey, we know there's going to be issues with this. We're going to implement it as securely as possible. We're going to take the lessons, we learned from moving to the cloud or other lessons, when technology takes this huge leap forward, and apply those to our business, but just understanding that there is risk with any business change. But the greater risk is not moving forward because our competition is going to move past.
I appreciate you both bringing different insights on that because that is very common with AI. I feel like you can see across the board in a lot of different responses. And then another question is, how do you have trust when there is zero trust there?
So I think the problem with zero trust is every vendor makes it a different thing, right? Like every vendor I've ever asked about zero trust or asked, how they implement zero trust, it's a different, everybody has a different definition for zero trust, and it's become such a buzzword in the industry, it's hard to define. So I think when we say we're trying to build trust, it's building trust in our service, in people. But I think also as security people, healthy skepticism is also very important. So, kind of the trust but verify. And I think that's what zero trust, at least for me, embodies is, whether it's on a vendor management service or third-party, platform service, or whether it's internal network traffic. It's just that trust but verify everything, and that's how you keep things secure.
I'm just additional point to that. I heavily agree with Robert. I think trust but verify is the fundamental principle to follow. I also see zero trust as like no implicit trust in this context, meaning like the idea is like, again, trust but verify. So that just means that you can still trust, but add those checks and across different levels, and that's what we can do.
Thank you guys for that. With that, that was the last question. So I'll give everyone just a quick second if they want to put any more in. But otherwise, I want to just say thank you all for taking time today to bring in and discuss like trust within Salesforce and what that looks like and how it's part of the secret sauce. Nicole, thank you for moderating, and all the panelists. You guys were absolutely spectacular. I hope everybody has an incredible rest of your day, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. It was great. Bye all.